Hi, I'm Layl McDill, and I'm going to show you how to make a frog out of polymer clay using your Silly Nilly frog kit. You'll need a frog kit and one small Silly Nilly and a cutting tool. This is a slicing blade. I've put duct tape on the corners to make it a little safer. And so to start out, you will go ahead and open up your package, which would be just starting at the top. Take out the little eyeballs, set those aside so that they don't get squished or wrecked. And then this little spot right here, this is actually for the mouth, so set that aside too. And then I just usually rip this part open right like that, and then you can get to the rest of it. So inside you've got your little ball of tin foil. That's going to be the body. And then these extra little pieces of clay are going to be the legs and arms. I'll set those aside because I don't need those quite yet. So I'm going to start with my Silly Nilly, and I'm going to just slice it into thin slices. Make them about as thin as you can. I'm thinking maybe like the thickness of a dime or a penny. The thinner you do it, the easier you'll find it to have plenty to go all the way around. If you make them too thick, you can always squish them down a little bit, which I'll show you how to do, so that you can get more out of it. Usually I just slice up most of it, but I might save the last little bit just in case I don't need it. So now I've got my little pile of slices. I'm going to take those and press them all over. This Silly Nilly I chose is Tilly the kitty, one of my favorite little cat faces. You could choose any kind of Silly Nilly, and it looks really fun when you have a whole bunch of them repeated over and over again. So you can see I am just laying them right next to each other, trying to fill in the spaces as best I can, but it's okay if just a little bit of tinfoil shows because it'll sort of squish around and the whole area will get filled in eventually when we roll it out. So I'm just going to lay them all around. Like I was saying, if you get a piece that's a little bit thick, you just kind of press it in your fingers like this, and then I'll make it a little bit bigger and fill in the space better. So I'm going to do this kind of fast. When you do it, you will probably take your time a little more than I am. You're just going to get all those on there. Let's see if I need more slices. It's kind of looking like I'm going to. I'm going to fill in. And it's nice to have a little left over because I can kind of gauge how thin I need to slice the last little bit. Looks like this time around I need to slice pretty thin. Sometimes I have extra. Sometimes I have to kind of make sure I'm careful. Well, it's working out pretty good. I'm going to have to maybe overlap a little bit right here. That's alright. That's kind of going to be the bottom anyways. And I'm pretty close. So if I've got some spots like this that are showing, I'll kind of squish like this. And the Silly Nilly will really keep its design pretty well as long as you just kind of press and squish. Then I'm going to roll it partly in my hands and partly on the table. You might have a nice this is a plexiglass surface. That works really good to work on. Sometimes I'll just work on a piece of label paper. It's one of my favorite surfaces to work on too because it's nice and smooth and the Silly Nilly, this polymer clay doesn't stick to it. So see how I'm just rolling it and squishing it. And I can make it as smooth as I want. If you like it a little bit lumpy, that's alright too. So rolling it like that, rolling like this. Eventually it gets pretty smoothed out. Now I'll do a little check. Do I see any tinfoil? I don't want any tinfoil showing. It's not as pretty as the Silly Nilly. Oh, there's a tiny bit there, so I just kind of squish that. Check, check, check. Looking pretty good. Now, a lot of times there'll be like a flatter piece of part of the chunk of tinfoil, and that'll be the bottom. So you kind of flatten that down, and I've got the body ready to go. Now let's make the arms and legs. I'm going to take all these little pieces. Your package might have 3, might have 4 colors, just all depends. And warm each color up. Every color is going to be a little bit different in texture, just depending on the type of clay. Well, all of these clays are Primo clay, but sometimes Primo is a little softer and a little harder than others. So I'm rolling into little worms. Each color into a nice little, maybe about 4-inch worm. And I'm going to stack those together, kind of like that, and do a little twist. What I'm doing here is sort of marbleizing. So I'm doing twisting as much as you want to. It's really fun to see. Now, it might start to crack. That's okay. Twist it. You can roll it. Do a little folding. And then you can stretch it or roll it again and twist it again to get those colors swirled together in kind of a fun way. I usually repeat that maybe 3 or 4 times. Just keep going until it looks really pretty to you. Make sure you stop before it becomes a new color. That's not what you're probably going to shoot for here. We like the swirlies. So, once I've got that nice and swirly, I'm going to take it and roll it into a worm. But this worm, well, it's kind of like a boa constrictor that swallowed an egg. It's smaller and more narrow on this end and wider in the middle. See how that looks? Just like a boa constrictor with a big egg in the middle. So I'm going to cut that in half. Sometimes I can kind of bend it, and that'll help you find the middle. It's probably the easiest way. Just kind of open it up, cut it right in the middle. Let's see how good I got. 2 sides, lay them next to each other. Yep, pretty close. Now I'm going to take it and cut off the ends about a ½ inch, sort of like a little square. Those are going to be the arms, and these are going to be the legs. I'll set those aside. And then I'll make the hands or the arms first. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to pinch it and flatten it. Pinch it and flatten it, sort of making it into a flattened triangle. See how that works? Pinch, flatten, pinch and flatten, pinch and flatten. 2 little flattened triangles. Pretty close to the same size and shape. They don't have to be exact. Then on this, I'm going to just flatten. The legs just need flattened because they're already sort of pinched. These are nice long triangles for these back legs. See how I'm just flattening that out? Okay, now it's time to make the fingers. To do this, the best tool you have is actually the card for your silly millies. Just take that little corner right there and press it in and make however many toes you want. How about 4 toes? And I just cut it with the little corner. Works really good. And do that on all the feet. And do that on all the hands. And sometimes the corner gets a little worn out. You could slip it to another corner. There we go. And then, looks like my hands are just going to have 3 fingers, but my feet are going to have 4. However it works out. Now to make them into little toes, spread them and pinch them. Spread them and pinch them. And you'll get nice little feet. Nice little toes sticking out there on the little hands. And just like that. It's kind of fun to pinch those little toes and shape them up. Just like that. On every little toe. And now I'm going to be ready to add all my parts on. I've got my body. I'm going to put the arms on first. So this is where his face is going to be. I'm just going to add arms however you want. You know, you can make them in fun little poses if you want to. I usually just kind of do them sticking out like that, but you can always play around with it. And now, to add on the back legs, what you're going to do is right behind where you put that arm on, you're going to put that leg so it's sticking straight up like that. So it looks really funny. But this is how you get the bend. Then you bend it down, and then you also bend this little foot so it's sticking out. And you're going to attach that little ankle part right there, just underneath that arm. And see, it'll sit right there. It'll look like a nice little bend, nice little frog bend. Do the same thing on the other side, pointing up, and bend the leg and bend the ankle and stick it right on. And then you can set him down so he sort of flattens out. And now, time to add his eyes. This is always a fun part. He really comes to life when he gets his eyes. And you can play around. You can make his eyes however you want. I just sort of set them right on there. And, you know, if you want to, you could make one eye looking up and one eye looking down. Whichever way. It just depends on how your eyes look. And I usually just attach them right there. Now for the smile, take your little black piece. Might need a little warming up. Just depends on how soft that black was. And warm it up, and you're just going to roll that into the skinniest little worm. It's going to get very long, and actually you'll have a little extra which you might be able to use to make eyelashes or something if you want to be creative that way. So I'm going to just cut that off. You can use my cardigan, and I only need about, a little over an inch. And you can roll it however thin you want to. Maybe that's a little too long. I'll take off a little more. And then let's try on a smile. Whoops, he's hopping all over the place. Okay, so a smile, a lot of times I just kind of see how it lands. Lay it on there and make him nice and smiley. You can bend that little end part if you want to. And then once it's there, just give it a little pat. And there he is, all ready to bake up. And he'll be, just put him in the oven. I usually light it on just a regular piece of paper and bake it for 30 minutes at 275. Let him cool for a little while, and then he's all done. Have fun. And be sure to check out claysquare.com if you're looking for more fun kits.